After my tutorial on how to create a glowy effect in Lightroom, I had a viewer, Sharon Benton, send in this picture of sushi that she had actually used the glowy effect on. And she sent me the raw file and asked me to edit it because she was interested in seeing how I would edit it. So what I thought would be fun actually is to apply 3 of the presets that I traditionally use, show you what they look like here so that you might be able to tinker with these presets and create something similar if you like the looks on your own Lightroom. And just kind of show you the different varieties of photos that you can get, or different edits that you can get out of any one photo. So one of the very most common presets that I've created is this one that I call Natural Sharp. And so I'm just going to go ahead and apply it. And basically you'll see this is the preset I use for standard brands. So if I'm working for General Mills or Disney, this is kind of what I call the everyday edit. So the exposure goes up a bit, the contrast goes up a bit, the highlights and the shadows stay pretty close, and the whites get moved. I pull up clarity, I pull down vibrance and up saturation, and then all of these colors here stay the same. I don't touch the tone curve. And then the biggest thing about this filter is I pull the sharpening, the radius, detail, and masking all the way up, and the amount pretty close to all the way up. There is a little bit of luminance to make sure that any grain is gone. The color and contrast kind of stay the same. I'll always click on my enable profile corrections, and then down here I'll also always make sure that the grain is off and that the dehaze is somewhere around 19. And thanks to Jerry for helping me find that dehaze button because I'd never used it before. So automatically applying that is obviously going to make like a lot of this color pop. But what I would do if I was editing this myself is there's a lot of glow here, and remember that where the light is, your eyes will go there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this brush tool and actually pull down. I've got this brush set here. Here comes my boyfriend, so you might hear talking in the background. So I'm going to pull down the exposure to really even out this space because the focal point of this picture is down here, and so I am going to apply this brush filter up here to make that kind of glowy brightness even out so that this area of the giant sushi is what my eye can see. I'm also going to go ahead and just crop this picture, and we'll let this crop stay again because I want to get this center area within the rule of thirds. Now if I was going to add graphics here or text, I wouldn't necessarily crop it, but since we're editing this as a standalone shot, I'm going to go ahead and get that cropped into a rule of thirds. So from here, now that I've kind of evened out that white space, I'm going to also pull up the exposure, and then this is where I would start playing with the shadows and highlights if I was really anxious to play with that effect. And then just pull that contrast, pull that white, and just get it to a point where I feel happy. And again, one of the things, speaking of whites, so we have the sushi here that's going to draw our eyes. We've got this nice highlight here that's going to draw my eye here. But now I have this ginger that's just sitting here and hanging out, and it's kind of calling for more attention than I want it to. So again, I'm going to go up here, grab my brush tool. I'm going to scroll down just a bit and make that brush tool smaller. You can also change the size here. And then I'm going to just tap that brush tool around here, and I'm going to customize this so that the highlights are all the way down. I'm going to pull the shadows down actually. I'm going to pull the clarity up because clarity actually can brighten that image a little bit, or I mean darken it. And so I'm just going to go ahead and take some of the whites out of this so that it's not really sitting, it's maybe a little more contrast, so that that is not screaming for my attention in that upper corner. I still feel like some of the whites down here could be pulled up, so let's just play with those until we're happy. And that's a really nice bright pop. So let me go ahead and we'll call this a day. And again, this is under my natural sharp filter. And I'll just go ahead and save this as Sushi 1. Oh, see, I've already been playing with edits, so we'll call this Sushi B1, and I will actually upload these in the hiccup section below, in the comment section below, so that you can see what the actual photos look like side by side. The second filter is the filter that I use, or the preset that I use in my own channels, and I call it Cheeky Pink Blue. And we'll go ahead and use, I have one with a vignette ready to go and one without a vignette. So what you'll see is as this pulls in, you'll just start to see some adjustments because this filter obviously has totally different settings. So it's going to take a second. Clearly, we need to pull up that exposure. So once we pull that exposure up, let's see what happens. And what this is going to do is it's going to keep all of those brushes that I had. So this area is still evened out with a little bit of darkness. Again, this is gonna beg for some attention, so I'm gonna pull that down again because I want that exposure down so that it's just kind of sitting in the background. And the reason that I love this filter is I have pulled the highlights all the way down in this filter. The shadows are somewhere in the middle. It's just, I love this filter for my channels because it's moody, it's bright, it has like a nice pop of contrast without overdoing it. So the highlights are down, the shadows are up just a little, the whites are quite strong in this filter. I've added clarity, again dropped the vibrance and upped the saturation. I haven't messed with tone curve. I do believe here what I've done in the HSL section, I played with the saturation and the hue a bit, so you can actually see that my reds, my oranges, and my yellows are true to color, and that is because I don't want to change those colors or diminish them. Reds and greens are the most like savory or attractive colors to eat. So I've actually turned my greens up to a little closer to blue. I've turned my aquas down a little closer to green, and my blues a little bit closer to turquoise, just because I tend to love turquoise. So I was kind of playing with the colors as I wanted to play with them. Purple and magenta didn't get touched. And then I've pulled those colors. You'll see my reds, oranges, yellows, and greens, again, because those are our appetizing colors. I've pulled their saturation up quite a bit because I really want those colors to pop. So here are the settings on this filter, or on this preset, if you want to call it a preset. Again, I've pulled all of my sharpening up because it's really important to me that my food images are crisp sharp. I want you to feel like you are sitting actually in front of them. And if they are not clear, they feel like they're somehow inaccessible or far away. So I always pull that sharpening up. The amount not all the way to the red section because it will kind of hurt your eyes. If you've ever had that feeling of like, why does my eye feel like it's aching when I'm looking at this picture? It's usually because the sharpening or the clarity is turned up too high. Pulled the luminance up a little to make sure that all grain is gone. And let's see, I always enable the profile corrections. That's also left over. I typically will make sure that the profile corrections match my lens as well. I've been shooting on the same lens for a while. I'm not sure what Sharon shot on. And then with this, I've also added just a little bit of vignetting in the effects calendar, so or in the effects tab. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and export this as pink, CK Pink Blue, so that you can see that that's that one. And then the last one that I use is actually called NN Becca Preset. And this is based on another channel that I work on for a client. They have this very like moody, filtered look, and so I've created this filter from the Portra film pack that is a VSCO Cam preset. But I've pulled up so that the colors stay truer to color, because in film presets so often you lose a little bit of a color pop. The colors come in as kind of a different hue and saturation, and so that's the primary change that I've made to this. So you can see instantly that this is much more moody, but it does give that really pretty kind of approachable film style look. needed to pull the exposure up. So here's one where highlights are down, shadows are almost all the way up, whites are being piped in pretty strong, and blacks are pulled off. So if I pull my blacks down, as you can see, that's going to add some darkness. And so pulling those blacks up kind of pulls that depth out a little bit, and it kind of gives this like airy look to the shot, which I love. I really love this filter. It looks so nice when an entire channel is done in this filter, but this is a hard filter to mix in with other filters because it does have its own very strong profile look. So again, I'm going to go actually back up here because I'm seeing too much brightness up here. You'll remember that we had darkened that a little bit. And so let's just go ahead and I'm going to click on it to make sure that I can add to this. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint around here a little bit and play until I feel like this is not screaming for attention. And sometimes the best thing that you can do is just pull down the highlights. So I'll just kind of play here until I'm happy because I want this to look like it's a realistic edit. That's a little bit dark. So let's see if I can pull up these shadows just a smidge. That's going to work. So if I pull up the highlights over here in this section, some of those highlights are going to come out of that area. So yeah, just a little bit of playing until you're happy with it. Another thing that I notice when I pull this filter on is I'm actually going to grab a brush, and what I'm going to do is brush around that sushi because I feel like I'm losing some of the clarity of that sushi. So I'm going to put all of my bars to even because of course I have my custom filter on right now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull down the highlights to make sure that the whites are not getting totally blown out. I'm going to pull up the clarity because what that's going to do is really define the edges of that rice for myself. And let's see, maybe we'll pull up the contrast a little and see if that's nice. So now I kind of feel like we've lost some of this pink sushi in here. So I'm going to also pull up the saturation because I have no fear in calling a little attention to that section. So that's looking pretty nice. Maybe there's a little bit of highlight here that I could brush off, again, just to even out that picture. And we'll pull those shadows down. So, you know, all of the whites are just a little bit less screamy so that the primary white here in our sushi is saying hello in a really nice way. Okay, so end part of this filter, let's just go through. Tone curve hasn't been touched. Here's a good peek at the hues. The greens are turned up, so very similar to my cheeky pink blue, but in this one I've turned up the purple and magenta. And then the saturation has all sorts of crazy plays. So the red is down, the yellow is down, the green is down. And what that allows me to do is come up here and pull up the vibrance and the saturation. So again, I've talked about this before, but if you tweak one thing, you can tweak another thing and really get the look that you're going for. So, you know, maybe you want this kind of muted look, but you also want a vibrant colored dish. Play around with your vibrance and saturation and your colors and your saturation and luminance down here because there are all sorts of things that you can do within these tabs to really nail the look that you're hoping for. Down here under detail, again with film filters, there is usually grain, and so I've left some of the grain in this. If I wanted to turn off the grain, then it's as easy as sliding it over, but I think that this filter looks a little artsy with the grain added, so I leave a little bit in my preset. A little bit of black vignetting here around the corners. Let's go up here. The sharpening is all the way up as usual, but not so much here because again, I wanted this filter to kind of stay film looking, which isn't as like knock your socks off sharp. So let's go ahead and export this. I will post this one as well. This one we will call Portrait so that you can just see what that looks like compared to all of the other ones. And ask any questions. I know that this was a super quick walkthrough. If you are interested, I have considered putting together a pack of food-based presets. So if that's something that you're interested in, let me know below. And if you have a picture that you would like me to edit, send it along. It'll be fun to check out your work, and it's always interesting to see what different people do with different pictures, don't you think? Have a good one, you guys.